Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to hopefully make some money and not lose it all on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today. We have Trump inaugurated with no mention of crypto. Major sell-off, but Trump's World Liberty Fund does announce large spot crypto buys. We'll discuss that in detail in just a little bit. Also got the ETH Foundation announcing 50,000 ETH allocation to ETH Defi. We'll be putting that in context a little bit with everything that's been going on with ETH and Vitalik. And then finally, Mark Cuban attacks Trump meme coin and puts forward the idea of his own meme coin to contribute to the US Treasury. We'll get into a little bit of a discussion there on the meme coin presidential famous entrepreneur craze that might be starting off at the moment. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus a general discussion on market rotations and where liquidity is flowing, and a little bit of GCR catching up. The great trader came back to give us some wisdom yesterday. We'll be diving into that, so stay tuned. We have got Legendary and Rahim on stream with us today, ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do that, this show is not financial advice because we don't know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Rahim, it is Tuesday. It is the 21st of January. You seemed like you have aged many years over the weekend just gone. How's your last week been?
GM, everybody. Oh yeah, it's been a wild couple of days. I know you guys covered a bunch of it on the show yesterday, but the weekend was wild. Things did well. I did manage to catch it at a decent time. I think it was more or less around the same time as you did, Legendary, when I saw your tweet, because I was like, oh my god, I'm top blasting it. But I was like, let's just like see where it goes. So I did do well there, but I did feel like I lost a bit of profit yesterday, just trying to really analyze, okay, how is this inauguration going to really play out with the Trump coin, all this other retail plays that were coming out. So I know I was telling you guys on the show, I was like, you listen to like some of these people from the United States, and for someone who's on the other side of the world, like the way they bull post, I'm like, is there something I'm missing? Are people tagging like on the streets of New York with graffiti like the Trump ticker? Or like people having meetups and stuff? So I was like, am I mid curving it? And then that's why I was making some trades yesterday on the Trump coin, and they just didn't pan out so well. So it just like shows that like sometimes
Just
you
gave
just
it a bit
gotta
back.
just pause and just like enjoy your profit and just don't go crazy with it.
Fair enough. I actually got out of it as well and was just like, look, I don't really know which direction this is going at this point. Really interesting point on just like how good certain people are at bull posting. Like, I think, to be fair, like, I mean, I assume everyone's been following Frank's account in the last 48 hours, 72 hours, but maybe obviously long before that. But in particular with this coin, it's like the guy's good at bull posting. Like, he's exceptional. If there's like a skill set that has now been created of specifically bull posting your bags, he's pretty good at it. And maybe there's something about that that culture that like makes them even better at it, to be honest. Very, very good at it. Interesting point. Legendary. Oh, go on, Rahim. You want to come back?
No, it's just crazy. I was also listening to K Money on the Spaces, and he was like, I reached out to the Melania team, and I was like, you guys need to like discuss this, advise this. And he was like, if you're not working on your bags like this, then you're not working for your bags. And I was just like, the whole America side of things is just so wild, but it's hilarious to see it.
Yeah, it's they're good at selling the coins. Trump maybe being the best salesman of all, right? Legendary, how are you doing? We obviously caught up yesterday on all of this stuff. Anything else in that perspective? Anything personal? How you doing?
GM doing pretty well. Yesterday was a fun one, watching the whole inauguration event, playing a bit of acceptance speech or inauguration speech bingo on Photon, and seeing everything that Trump said being turned into a ticker with a lifetime of 10 to 20 seconds, basically. It was definitely an interesting and an entertaining one.
Like it. Just, given that you are the show's professional button clicker, how many buttons did you press during inauguration?
Actually, after I saw like how long his speech is gonna be, it was historically long. I gave up. It was 29 minutes and I don't know, 40, 50 seconds, which is twice as long almost as his last inauguration speech, which stands at 16 minutes. And basically, I think the longest one since the 1930s. So I was like, yeah, it's just getting to an absurd level.
I don't know how you know those stats. I don't know how or why you know those statistics.
That'd
Maybe
be
because you
great.
figured out like how many clicks per minute you were doing or something. Is that the metric you were coming up with?
Yeah, no, I had no like Stats and I have been chatting yesterday. You know, when like how many speeches are there? What's like the exact timetable of the event? And then I realized I have no idea if I have to expect a 10-minute, a 20-minute, a 1 hour speech just so to organize my own schedule after that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So yeah, interesting stats there. Talking of stats, stats, you are with us today. I wonder if you're able to just chime in for a little bit on the weekend's craziness, any thoughts, reflections, and how you doing, my friend? It's been a while.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy weekend. Like, I've been tweeting more than normal, and I feel like there's almost too much that happened to even dig in there. I'm surprised. Legendary. I had the opposite thought with Trump's speech, only because I followed the campaign for a bit and watched a few of his speeches, and he normally goes for like an hour and a half. But maybe campaign speeches have a different precedent than inauguration speeches. But I mean, so many different thoughts. It was, I think, one of the craziest weekends I can remember in crypto.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Look, I think we're going to get a chance to maybe unpack. We did a lot of it yesterday, but we're going to have a chance to unpack it a little bit more in the first headline today, because we'll be talking about how there was no mention of crypto. Not that that should necessarily be headline news, because maybe a lot of people are arguing that it was never going to be mentioned. But however, the World Liberty Fi did announce a bunch of spot buys for a bunch of crypto. So we'll dive into it there. And so I'm sure we'll have a chance to all unpack that a bit more. Let's get into it, though, starting with the price action as usual. Then we'll go through the headlines, the Web3 Roundup to get you up to speed with everything that you need to know. Bitcoin is down 3%. As you said, the majors have sold off. Bitcoin's at 103K. ETH is actually flat. Whether ETH's flat or whether it's up, it's just the same price. It's at 3.3K. That's just the stablecoin price of ETH. Solana is down 7%. Gosh, it ran really hard, didn't it, on the Trump stuff, because it launched on Solana, went as high as 290, now back down to 240. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we have Doge up a few percent to 38 cents. Got Trump down 30%, so it's now actually at 37 cents. I guess people trying to figure out where that's going to go next. Pepe's down 5%, Bonk's down 12%, Pengu's down 3%. Pengu's actually really got hit hard. It's down 25% in the last week, compared to something like Pepe is down 10%. So out of these like more blue chip memes, Pengu's actually got hit harder, it looks like. SPX, Murad's coin down 19. AI16Z on the AI side up 10. In general, though, it looks like a lot of red across the board here. I'm looking for some examples of green. We've got Dog Runes up 10%. You've got Turbo AI up 6%. Popcat's up a little bit as well, but I'd say mostly red here, actually. Goat is down another 2% to 25 cents. Thought Goat was the Doge of AI. Not at the moment. Maybe it can be, but definitely not at the moment. A big winner, though, Frog, up 22%. I've always liked Frog's art, but it's definitely down quite aggressively from its highs. But a little bit of recovery here, up 22%. That's what's going on the meme side of things. Getting into the headlines, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Trump was inaugurated yesterday. However, there was no mention of crypto. The majors sold off, but there were large spot crypto buys. $47 million worth of ETH, $47 million worth of Bitcoin, 4.7 mil of Aave, 4.7 mil of Chainlink, 4.7 mil of Tron, and 4.7 mil of ENA, which is Athena's token. So interesting to know there. We'll dive into that in a bit. Also, the ETH Foundation announced 50,000 ETH allocation to ETH DeFi. That's around $165 million worth. There's obviously been a lot of turmoil, I would say, or a lot of criticism directed towards the ETH Foundation at the moment. And there seems to be movement, like they seem to be doing things. Vitalik changed his profile picture. They're now trying to support DeFi, which they've been long accused of never doing or ignoring. So We'll dive into that a little bit more later as well. And then finally, Mark Cuban attacks Trump meme coin and puts forward the idea of his own meme coin to contribute to the US Treasury. I don't know if that's necessarily a serious thing. Might have been doing that a little bit to prove a point of how stupid it all is, but we will discuss it nevertheless in just a little bit. Some notable sales, 2 autoglyph sales. Remember, these are the more like on the digital fine art side of things, created by Lava Labs. These QR code style pieces of art, which I'm showing on the screen if you're watching in, one for 130 ETH, another one for 123 ETH. But for more on the NFT side, Legendary, why don't you tell us what is happening?
Absolutely. Bit of a mixed day for the NFTs. Pudgy Penguins being up 3.6%, 19.9 ETH floor. However, still down 18% over the last 7 days. Similar picture for the Bored Apes, although they are down as well over the last 24 hours, 4%, down 8% over the last 7 days, a 13.5 ETH floor for them. Azukis did have a bit of a rebound, quite aggressive one actually, up almost 10% over the last 24 hours, 11.7 ETH floor for them. Still down, however, 11% over the week, still not at all-time high, just 2 days ahead of the anime coin launch. Doodles having a green day, up almost 6%, 4.44 ETH floor for them, basically flat over the last 7 days. Miladies down 1% over the last 24 hours, still up 19%. Again, as you just said, Vitalik did change his PFP to Milady a couple days ago, so they are still up 19% over the last 7 days and sitting at a 4.75 ETH floor.
Like it. Thanks very much for the NFT roundup. Getting into the rest of the Web3 roundup, Hyperliquid posted another day of all-time high numbers, $22 billion in 24-hour volume. And I think Hyperliquid was one of the coins that's actually up 10% in the last 24 hours, I think, if I remember correctly, or certainly from the lows from when it sold off. Nillion announces their airdrop details. That's pretty cool. Project Bearachain surpasses $2 billion in deposits. Something I'm noticing about Bearachain is every time I write about Bearachain, there's a lot of engagement. I tend to think the engagement tracks performance in some way. So I'm just noticing that very much. World Liberty Fi stake $15 million of ETH. And the joke on the timeline is that they've done that before the ETH Foundation has managed to figure out a way to stake their ETH. Reuters reports Circle CEO suggesting executive orders are on their way to make it easier for banks to own digital assets. So that is one bullish potential executive order coming in. Though I didn't include it in the snapshot, there was another one, which I think the CEO of Bitcoin Magazine tweeted earlier today, where he said that there are, let me try and find the tweet. It was something to do with Bitcoin being included, or like our executive orders being included within the first 200. I'm just going to try and find the tweet in a second to confirm that. But that was, another one from someone fairly official and close to people, close to relevant people. And then finally, legendary trader GCR tweets yesterday, you should be less greedy, not more greedy at the moment. We're going to dive into that specific tweet in a moment, but he's saying, it was a long time ago that he said you were supposed to be incredibly bullish, and people keep referencing an old tweet. Now is not the time to be as bullish as you should have been when Sol was $10, for example. So that is the Web3 roundup. Before we get into the main headlines today, we're going to do a bit of discussion. But Legendary, is there anything that's catching your attention here before we get into the major stuff?
Yeah, the Wu blockchain one made me smile, where we said that, according to Reuters, Circle CEO Jeremy Allaire said that US President Trump may soon sign an executive order. And if you remember, before Trump's inauguration, media was reporting crypto is going to be a national priority from day one. There's so many executive orders lined up to be signed for crypto specifically as well for day one. And now we have reworded that to may soon sign one executive order. That was definitely an interesting one to catch. And apart from that, actually the GCR post, not so much because I'm following what GCR is saying, but because at least the two of us we also had the discussion how we are thinking about positioning our portfolios right now. So definitely wanted to spend a couple minutes on that.
Okay, so we'll definitely get into that one in a sec, because I wanted to definitely do that one. Just to confirm, David Bailey, who is the CEO of Bitcoin Magazine and arranged the Bitcoin conference at which Trump spoke, tweeted this 6 hours ago. He said, "Got confirmation tonight that our executive orders are among the first 200. I have no idea what made it in, but good news comes." If you don't know, if you have no idea what made it in, then I'm not sure we can guarantee good news. But that was said. Just telling you what was said. Sounds pretty good, but we never know until that happens. As usual, just trying to bring you the information that you need. Rahim, anything catching your attention here before we get into the main stuff, the GCR stuff? I'm sure you've got some strategy and reflections on your trading and portfolio allocation. But before we get there, anything else?
For sure. I mean, on the whole, the signing of the strategic reserve, like, I was having this discussion with a person who's very good at Bitcoin technical analysis, a friend of mine, and we were just like talking about like how I still feel like, there's a part of me that I'm like, okay, you know what? This feels like when the ETFs got approved for the next couple of weeks, we were just quiet, things were choppy. But that run that we saw the night before, when it went from like 99K to 108K, I'm just like, a part of me is like, I feel like there's some information that's not out to the public. Yeah, and a part of me, I'm just like, yeah, maybe we might find something out today when markets open up. So I guess that'll give us a good. But like the other thoughts I have, we'll get into it when we get into the new bigger headlines and stuff on the Mark Cuban thing and the Ethereum Foundation thing.
Yeah, sounds good. That sounds good. I don't think I have anything to add there. So let's get into the GCR conversation then, Legendary. Do you want to just set it up a little bit, explain, because he actually had a variety of tweets, which people might find interesting. And for context, GCR is the trader that everyone looks up to. And as soon as they say anything, everyone completely flips and tends to agree with whatever they have to say about anything. Because I think they've been probably one of the most successful people on chain. What does he have to say, Legendary? And what are your thoughts on it?
Absolutely, yeah. There's 3 main replies that GCR posted yesterday. Not going to go into all of the details, but just kind of try to highlight the main points. One was that Mika was posting, sharing this on screen. "The time for greed is now," is what I'm hearing, referencing this old post from Feb 2023 by GCR, and GCR himself came back on that to say that it's been 750 days since he posted to long Solana at $10. And then it was the time to be greedy, but over the course of the last two years and a bit, the time to be greedy has gone. And if anything, it's the time to be less greedy. Second post was Web3 Quant was asking specifically, are you calling for the top? GCR said, "I don't believe Bitcoin tops until it flips gold, and will likely be long Bitcoin for the rest of my life at varying levels of allocation." Max was post FTX. Long USD is also a risky trade. And then the third one was still believe in 10K ETH. We'll address this once since it's asked so often, was GCR's reply. The answer is yes. It was very clear my target for 2030. Otherwise, I wouldn't have tweeted by 2030. I've tweeted about ETH once in the past 3 years, and at the time I tweeted about it, ETH was in the 1000s. It's not 2030 yet, but you should still be up 3x since the last time I mentioned ETH.
I like it. Okay, so interesting thoughts there. One on Bitcoin, that it, kind of long Bitcoin until it flips gold. ETH to 10K over a longer time horizon, and long USD as a risky thing. What are your reflections, Legendary? Your thoughts, and then how are you applying it to your portfolio, or how were you maybe applying this anyway? Because I think we've been speaking.
Oops, I think
Been discussing privately.
We lost you for a moment, P, but you now are back with us.
Okay.
So yeah, you were asking how I'm applying this for my portfolio and how I've been thinking about my portfolio in general. I have a hard time always with like, is the top in now? When's ETH going to go to 10K? Nobody can realistically tell you when the top is in. Not even someone who's made $1 billion in trading can do that. So this is not really how I operate. I just don't see a point in trying to think is the top in or not. Rather than that, I've been focusing in this cycle to take profits way more aggressively than I did the cycles before. And what I'm really trying to understand is how attention is flowing and what is attention on the stuff that I'm interested in, aka AI coins, for example, currently competing with. And also how we are progressing through a cycle and how our expectations are changing. Good example for that is basically we used to be excited about a Binance listing, whether it's a perp listing or spot listing. Perp listing was a cool thing. We progressed to being only excited for a Binance spot listing and then being like, if there's a perps listing, we're just better going to dump that shit because it's not going to help us. Then we used to get excited about the strategic reserve. Then we had the expectation that it has to come on day one. And then we used to be excited about either Elon or Trump mentioning a meme coin in any way, shape, or form. Think about Peanut. Peanut did run to a billion after Elon posted a couple of times about it on X. Now that expectation level got even higher. Now we expect Trump and family to launch meme coins and send them to 50 bill plus within a day. So we're getting to a point in the cycle where it's like really hard to compete with the attention that the Trump family is getting, or the most powerful people in the world are getting, which are getting involved on the meme side as well. And our expectations also get to a point where they're like ridiculously overblown. And that is something that I try to track more, which, some people would call a top signal. But again, even if the top has been in or it hasn't been in, I feel like what is also important is to track the attention that new launches are getting. This is where I had the post out about anime coin specifically, major NFT project, obviously, and seeing how that will do in this market, competing against so many other things is an important indicator. So long story short, what does that mean for my personal portfolio allocation? The way I'm playing it currently is very much focused on conviction bets. I'm long in majors. I have a shit ton of money in stable coins. As I said, I took a lot of chips off the table this cycle, but I'm also happy to redeploy some of these stables again when I see an interesting opportunity. But
it's more in and out, though, isn't it?
In and out,
Short time frame.
Like I posted it with Trump, entered the trade at 10 bill, sold most of my position at 40 bill. Yes, I didn't sell the top. Same with Melania, only came in for a double up because it was already still a free trade because so many people missed Trump. But still, I had a hard time to expect or to like analyze how high this is going. So it was like, if I do a clean to X, I'm happy with that. Very quickly in and out of positions. And apart from majors, stables and those in and out flips, really tried, and I've been saying this on the show as well, to consolidate my AI bets into some of the very, very major AI tokens, something like AIXBT, where I think this still has legs to go somewhere up again, but definitely reduced my token exposure by 80% to, not in terms of the money value of it, but in terms of the amount of tokens that I'm holding.
I like it. I think that's really, really insightful. I'm just going to share one thing that I did, which I think is turning out to be a really smart thing in hindsight. It's kind of tracking the trajectory of maybe what you just said. And Rahim, I'll come to you in a second as well for like some general reflections. But like, I think I shared on the show, this must have been maybe a year ago now, or maybe 8 months ago, 9 months ago. I said like, when these profits are coming in from either trades or some of these investments that we've done for the first time this cycle, I had this idea where at a particular point in time, like in 2020, what year are we in now? 2025 now, at the start of 2024, be like, okay, I can put, I think the first time one of my big wins came in, I put like 90% of it into Bitcoin. And I think Bitcoin might've been 50, 60K. I think it was in that, it was just around that region. I can't remember exactly. But I was like, I can do 90% of Bitcoin, but because it was one of those where it was an investment, it had done well. And so I was going to keep getting that over the rest of the 12 months, knowing that the price is not going to stay as high as it always was. It's going to go down over time. But I still thought, okay, if I do like a high allocation now, and then as the cycle goes on, I just keep reducing the amount that goes into crypto. And so next time, maybe I do 80% for the next month, then I do 70%, then I do 60%, then I do 50%, to the point now where we're like 1 year later or 8 months later, I don't remember exactly. For the last couple of months, it's just been like all stables, and it's just, you know, doesn't mean that I'm not bullish core crypto, because I'm still keeping those other holdings. Like that Bitcoin is not for me to sell. It's just like that I wanted to accumulate that, and I did so more at a good price. And to be clear, I've actually also been buying some Bitcoin at like 100K, because I'm kind of just applying this rule where it's like, right, now I'm going to do 10%. And I didn't follow it perfectly. And sometimes I went and spent stuff on things that I probably shouldn't have either. But like in general, having that scaling out mentality was something that was helpful to me. So I thought I would share that. Rahim, you've been kind of nodding along. What do you think of that? And how have you been thinking about it? And then we're going to get into the main headlines and all that discussion.
I'm so much with you on this. I feel like one of the things I wasn't able to do when to the degree I would have liked when the whole FTX crash happened, to have had stables to deploy into a black swan event like that. And I think that's something that I wholeheartedly always want to have capital when things go like really south, that I'm not sidelined, especially when it comes to ecosystems that I have like a lot of belief in, right? So I've been kind of doing something very similar, where I've been like moving to stables a lot. I did buy, so even with my Trump trade, I ended up putting 30% in Bitcoin. I think if anything, like the more craziness I see in the space, I start allocating more and more Bitcoin to that. So I've been doing that. You know how you are going reverse, I'm kind of increasing it, where I'm like, okay, every time like the space gets crazier, I'm like, you know what? I believe in crypto. Maybe I don't have the same beliefs in like these different verticals at the same degrees I had a couple of months ago. So I'm like, okay, maybe I was holding a lot more riskier assets before. Now I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna move a lot to Bitcoin. My ETH exposure is very hilarious. It's probably obviously a very risky thing, but I've kind of done it in a way where I don't hold ETH anymore, but all my ETH exposure is in Pepe.
I knew you were going to say.
Yeah, because I've tracked this like a lot, and I think like every time ETH recovers a lot, Pepe is like a way better hedge bet. So I'm just like pretty comfortable. It's been out for 2 years, so I'm pretty comfy over there.
Nice.
And yeah, mostly Sol. I bought Sol a lot back again. I was again looking at the fundings, the sell walls at around 290, 295. So I sold a stack of Sol, and I literally bought in some this morning. So yeah, just taking it step by step. But I think as the space goes by, like I feel like I also deployed a lot on AI actually yesterday night. I do fundamentally believe, like to me, this is something we talked about it in Singapore, B-Check, that I feel like to me a lot of the AI world is a B2B ecosystem rather than just like a B2C. Sure, like some of the stuff we are seeing right now, AI XBT, yada yada, it's more B2C, but like look at stuff like virtuals or like some of these ecosystems. I just feel like if you're able to build products and ideas that are beneficial to other Web3 companies or even Web2 companies, that's just like an easier sell to these companies, that you're like, oh, we're gonna bring you profit XYZ, we are solving a problem, this is our infrastructure, invest in us. Or like so yeah, I allocated a lot. So AI is a very massive bet of mine for the next couple of months.
Interesting move. Thanks for sharing. We'll kind of analyze that as we go. Right, let's get into the main headlines then. Some interesting stuff. I think first we want to go straight to none other, of course, than Trump. Trump was inaugurated with no mention of crypto yesterday. There was some negative price action on the majors, but World Liberty Fi announced some large spot crypto buys. Legendary, you're going to break down thoughts. What were the details and your reflections on the back of it?
Absolutely. Let's set this up properly. As you said, during the inauguration, crypto has not been mentioned a single time. This is also when the market started to correct a bit on the majors, where parts of the timeline were saying, let's wait for another speech, let's wait for the first executive orders to be signed. We've seen a bunch of them being signed, including pardons in the Gen 6 US Capitol event/attack, easing regulatory burdens around oil and gas production, renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, a couple orders around immigration, national security, and many, many more, but not a single one, as you said, being signed around crypto on day one. However, what we have seen is exactly what you have mentioned. World Liberty buying $47 million worth of ETH, same amount worth of wrapped BTC, 4.7 mil of Aave, 4.7 mil worth of Link, and the same amount for both TRX and ENA, the ecosystem coin in the Ethena DeFi layer, so to speak. So that was basically the nod to crypto. As you also have already mentioned, we have that report. I'm currently looking for it. There we go. By the Circle CEO, Jeremy Allaire, who said that Trump will, quote unquote, imminently act on banks' crypto trading. And there are orders that will be signed around that, among the first 200 orders that are to be signed that allow banks to trade crypto, offer crypto investments to wealthy clients and hold it in portfolio. And that Trump has pledged to be a crypto president, and that they expect the committee work to be very active literally in the coming weeks. This is what the Circle CEO had to say on that matter. And another nod to crypto that we've seen coming out from the new administration is this, the Doge website, the official government site, doge.gov, is using the official Doge logo. I'm showing this on screen. And the only thing it says right now is an official website of the United States government, Department of Government Efficiency. The people voted for major reform with the Doge logo.
No way. That's so funny. I missed that one. Thanks so much for sharing. Want to come back to you straight away, Legendary. Then Funky's got his hand raised. Want to go to him. Would love to bring you in as well then, Stats, to get your reflections on some of the craziness and any of the specific things we're mentioning today. But Legendary, coming straight back to you. What's your view here? What's the specific view, specific take? The World Liberty 5 obviously come in with these big buys. Is that good? Is it like making a mockery of the whole thing? Is it good? What's your take?
I think again we had those expectations that everything is going to be signed from the get-go, that there's going to be a strategic reserve ready from day one. And when the market was thinking that, BTC did shoot up to 108, 109K. And the market is still very much looking at those positive news that may or may not come out. The same with the website that we just had up. Doge did pump on that news as well. So I think we are, on the one hand, very impatient. On the other hand, have very, very high expectations. And this is also how the market is currently trading this, a bit more anxious, with the fingers on both the buy and sell buttons, depending on whether there is a piece of news coming out that has been expected or whether there's none.
Fair enough. It just one of my reflections is Cyrus tweeted this out, which I think is always smart in the end. Like if you're unsure about something, people's behavior is confusing. You're waiting for the people to say something to corroborate something. Maybe just follow the money. Just follow the money. If you're really trying to read the situation, Cyrus tweeted, quote tweeting a Michael Saylor tweet. Michael Saylor tweeted yesterday saying the company of the 47th president of the United States just bought $47 million in Bitcoin. That's it. That's what they did. And Cyrus tweeted on top of that, he didn't say anything about crypto during his speech because he already said everything we need to know with his wallet. That I think makes sense to me. Funky, wanted to bring you in here, then I want to throw to Stats. Funky, what are your thoughts here, my man?
GM gang, yeah, a couple of different things. For one, I think it's ludicrous that people expected him to say something during the inauguration. He went in there with a very broad platform that really spoke to all Americans, especially to the Republican base. Crypto is really small. And I want to give a shout out to Stats because I think that he had a great tweet the other day where he reached out to some TradFi friends and basically asked if they knew anything about the Trump coin. None of them did, right? And I think it would have been a massive misstep for him to mention crypto on the heels of launching a meme coin 2 days earlier, because he's going to get blasted for it anyhow. So just setting that aside, I think Legendary made a great point about how impatient people are. I saw ICO Beast had some great takes on this. And this is coming straight from Kristen Smith. And this is the alpha that I wanted to offer today. And this was 12 hours ago in the Blockchain Association chat for the members. There is definitely a crypto-specific EO coming. It's just a question of if it's tonight or later this week. They do not have any exact language on it. Another thing that was discussed in the chat, so a little bit more of alpha. And this kind of gets to the point I was making yesterday at the end of the show, that an executive order is a very temporary thing and it can be struck out with a single line of a pen. And he, in one executive order, removed 78 of Biden's executive orders, basically just canceled them out. Some of those include the stuff against crypto. So they're trying to get the exact language on what impact that's going to have. It looks like there's also going to be stays on a number of enforcement actions that have been coming from the SEC. I'm just giving you kind of like some highlights from the chat because it was blowing up last night. So there is a lot of very positive things happening behind the scenes, I think. And just for God, just daddy chill, just like the GIF, right? Like, I mean, people just need to calm down and let things play out. He literally was inaugurated yesterday, and it's crazy how the markets are reacting. But I think it just also underscores how tiny this space is and how people are here.
Fair enough, man. I think that's very, very fair. Appreciate the insight as always. Stats, would love you to come in here, man. I know you said you've been tweeting about this way more than normal at the moment. A lot of thoughts. How are you kind of distilling it and making sense of it all?
I got so many thoughts, and the stuff Funky just said gave me more thoughts. I'm like less bullish on the buys from World Liberty. I think the numbers people were talking about, the numbers that were being thrown around for like for like the strategic Bitcoin reserve, like this, like 47 million is a lot of money, but relative. I mean, you got to understand, like, Bitcoin has outperformed the S&P 500 massively since the election. Like, there's just this huge, like, it's outperformed NASDAQ. Like, it's outperformed all risk assets because there is this just like embedded assumption that we're going to be getting stuff from Trump. At the Bitcoin National Conference, he said a lot of things very passionately that were day one things. So those things not happening, I think, did just kind of set people back a little bit. I think that Funky made a good point. Like, he launched a meme coin this weekend. I think this is why people are pissed about the meme coin. It's because that now if he talks about it, it feels like he's pumping his own bag, as opposed to, I think, what the hope was a week ago, which is that we're just going to get someone who's going to be good for the industry. And then you throw in your own meme coin and everything becomes conflicted, which is not what people wanted. So I'm still bullish for sure. I haven't sold a thing, but I think like the past few days have been at the margin a little bit bearish. Again, I'm still bullish. But as for the World Liberty, he raised this fund in US dollars. Not fund. This project just sold out in US dollars, in USDC, $300 million. The normal project raises money in Sol or ETH. So people buying this had to sell crypto to buy USDC to invest. So the fact that he put 1/3 of the money back into crypto, to me, isn't like that big of a deal. If you look at most coins, or most projects, almost everything raises in ETH or raises in Sol. So they did, first they had to transfer back to USDC so people could invest, and then he put 1/3 back into tokens. To me, that's just not a huge needle mover. And I kind of don't really align with Cyrus's tweet there as far as like, look how bullish this is. Like, yes, this is a project that is like Trump's kids basically running, that absolutely love crypto, and they move from stables to 1/3 in crypto. Like, that's like, to me, that's just not a needle mover relative to the expectations that were laid out. I think we are going to get stuff today. The stuff I saw in a tweet, and I tweeted like, this looks like a bunch of sweet nothings. There's like setting up a crypto council, like removing the possibility of a government cryptocurrency. Like, again, I just don't think those are the types of things that are going to move the market. And again, this is all because the reason that is because the market has outperformed every other risk asset so aggressively for the past 3 months. Like, do we get back a little bit of that outperformance? I think that's possible.
Interesting. Very, very interesting thoughts. Appreciate that, Stats. One of the things that made me think of, and maybe this is like that tinge of bearishness, which you're like trying to articulate. It set off maybe a similar feeling in me, and it was kind of articulated by, I don't know how to pronounce this account. It's quite a prominent account. Hasu. They said this was in response to like a question on like cracking down on crypto and the concept of, well, okay, fine, it's been, quite bad to, it's been very bad to operate in crypto for a long period of time in the States. And like, is the pendulum basically going to swing so far the other way that it's going to be so terrible? Well, it's just going to cause a bit of carnage, which will then mean regulators were going to have to come back again in a really hard way. So what he tweeted was, he said, yes, but US being crypto friendly is inherently a short-term phenomenon. You can never trust regulators to be on your side in the long term. And the bigger the excesses over the next 4 years, the more likely we'll see the pendulum swing in the other direction again. Stats, I just wanted to put that to you. Is that kind of where that trepidation is coming from?
I mean, I think I don't think that's an impact on the market at all right now. But I think that, I mean, yeah, like if FTX happens under Trump's watch, if something like the amount of fraud and scams that we all see in this space, like we see people get robbed of millions of dollars frequently. We see people sign away their wallets. We see rugs constantly. Like if that gets too public and gets too big, it will get regulated, because that's not going to look good for, like, the people aren't going to be happy. Like that's actually just not what the population wants, is a world where it's easy to get scammed. And too much deregulation could lead to that. It's not what even this government wants, or Donald Trump wants. So I think, yeah, if that happens, I don't think it'll be good. I don't think that has any impact at all on the market right now. I also just, as hard as it's been to operate in crypto, in the space, like I don't think that, I mean, the biggest thing that's happened over the past year for the majors and the stuff that really matters is ETF approvals, which has been like net positive inflows. So I don't think, like, for the majors, the regulators have been like really destructive. Maybe for the overall ecosystem, like Stoner Cats getting thrown under the bus, or even something like Coinbase, which has been extremely contentious with the SEC, was still trading essentially at all-time highs after 6 months ago, or not 6 months ago, but a few months ago. So I just, again, I don't think like deregulation is what moves the majors at the margin over the next few months. Probably long-term bullish, but I think it's a bit more of a mixed bag. And we've seen this in Hong Kong. Like, Hong Kong always talks about how badly they want to be like the Web3 hub. But then if you actually look at the reality, like, they're having a really hard time implementing policy, because there are some negatives that come with being too loose and too deregulated that even they don't really want. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out over the next 6 months.
Interesting. Yeah, pretty insightful stuff, Sam. Appreciate that. Maybe, I mean, I think taking that idea and extending it, then, Rahim, why don't we go straight into, we're going to do this last today, we might as well go straight into it now. Mark Cuban's tweets, we're talking about like potential excesses that might ensue. I've actually been speaking about and tweeting about how I actually think Trump and the family and the business has turned hard mode on, because it means that so many more coins are going to be coming to the market. So many potentially like less thought through things will be coming, and all of those things will be in competition with, Legendary mentioned anime earlier. He wants to watch that very closely. They didn't know that they were going to have to compete with a Trump meme coin on the week of their launch, right? So that has a huge effect on all the people who've been building in a long period of time, and now who kind of opened the floodgates to more people. So what's going on with the Mark Cuban, the set of tweets? He's suggesting he might come in with a coin. Don't know if it's serious, but what's your take and what's going on?
So just to give a bit context to why Mark Cuban ended up putting out this tweet, right? There was this tweet going around by this gentleman called Jeff Dorman, where he was essentially saying that the whole launch of Trump coin is actually a lot more bullish for the entire industry, and not just like from a token point of view. Because he is like, now we can reach into this world where products and brands and businesses can launch coins, and we can have actual people trading celebrities, brands, instead of trading memes that are actually stupid and pointless and don't have anything backing. He was around the idea of, okay, we've kind of tokenized attention in different aspects, whether it's YouTube monetization, OnlyFans. We as a society have always kind of found ways to basically monetize on attention in some way or the other. This is where he essentially goes, and to quote him, he goes, mint it, print it, sell it, fuck it, where he's essentially this, we can just like put out anything, sell everything, tokenize everything, even if it's like vaporware. And of course, Mark Cuban is like a very prominent investor in the Web3 space on protocols. He was a big investor in Injective. He was big on like Bored Apes back in the days as well. So he's kind of obviously been a bit pissed off with a lot of a lot of institutional people like Brian Armstrong and Coinbase really validating and listing these coins and being like, okay, the problem is not only of Trump launching the meme coin, but a lot of industry experts are actually validating as a serious thing. And that's when he was like, okay, we can all create coins of our own. We can all create a Trump and Melania coin. And that's when he proposed the idea of like, you know what, I'm going to create a coin, and it's going to have similar tokenomics to Trump with a 20% float, and we're going to send all that money to the US Treasury. So yeah, he's kind of like really lost it because he's kind of like really annoyed of like none of this makes sense. So he's been rambling on the timeline. Yeah, I think that's kind of a TLDR of what's going on over there.
Okay, that's an outstanding summary. Thanks so much for the additional context as well. It's really helpful. My immediate response, or my immediate thought as I'm listening to that back, and be curious to hear Legendary's thoughts, and then Rahim as well, how you think about this. Like, I guess this comes to the core of what crypto is, right? Like, it's a permissionless thing. Like, although he's suggesting that in some way, what he is suggesting is already possible and was already possible before Trump. I know this gives it greater legitimacy. I know that there's like, you know, at the highest level now, there's kind of an acceptance that this type of stuff is okay. And that is relevant. However, what he's suggesting, which is, you know, that tweet where he said, mint it, print it, fuck it, or whatever he said. It's like, that's kind of what people have been doing. People have been doing that all the time. I don't know how many of these are coming out of the States, whether they're done by a VPN or whether they're somewhere else. Like, that is what people are doing. And, you know, without, say you did take that position or say you take the position of Cuban, which is that you don't want that to be possible. What does that do? That wipes out the whole meme industry, potentially. That wipes out that whole area of speculation, or you need to aggressively regulate that area of speculation. Like, I think the devil is always in the details with these types of regulations, because once you start writing these things down, you then have to like actually put into words how you'd regulate it. And it's easy to say, actually, it's easy to say on both sides. It's easy to say on both sides, oh yeah, let's let it just be free. When really you probably think, well, there should probably be some carve outs, right? And equally, it's easy to say, well, you know, we've got to regulate stuff. It's like, well, okay, well, how specifically do you want to regulate that? Because if you overset the mark, you're going to wipe out this whole new crypto meme economy, which has kind of been created, from which there are actually some legit things that get built. Of course, a lot of it is nonsense, but sometimes there can be something interesting created from it. I mean, arguably, you might have at some point said that NFTs were, you know, altcoins with pictures. That's how Kobe described them. And yet they turned out, like, I'm a true believer in NFTs as an asset class. Like, I mean, definitely on the art side, maybe even on the membership club side. Like, I just think NFTs are just a brilliant asset. And of course, a whole host of them are terrible. But I don't know. That's my perspective. Legendary, would be curious for your take here.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, as you said, this has been possible before. It's not like people like Haley Welch waited with the Haktua coin for Trump to come out and launch that. So she feels safe that she can do that as well. And people who had bad intentions have done it before. On the other hand, you have projects who were holding back or have been holding back to launch a token that would actually have a legitimate use case. So it's not, you know, Mark Cuban, great businessman, but he's very much trying to paint a black and white picture here of something that has a ton of gray shades in there. There is obviously a need to not allow every single potential rug under the sun to be brought on chain, because this will create an experience where the customers, the retail customers, the normies will ultimately shy away because they will lose everything. On the other hand, we have seen what overregulation, overprotection does to different jurisdictions. We've seen what that has done in the EU, for example, is doing in the EU. So there is a middle ground to be found there, and it's just it reads like Mark is frustrated for whatever reason, is just putting that post that it doesn't add a lot of additional color and gray that is needed to paint a better picture of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Shout out to Kashmir in the YouTube comments as well. I think he noted, which was true. I think Mark Cuban got burnt pretty aggressively in the previous bull market. So I think, you know, that's always a factor. If you come in and get burned, then that's not good. And, you know, that's not great for adoption either. If you're just pushing a lot of nonsense and then people get burned and they're not going to come back. So That I think is relevant too. What about right, we've only got 4 minutes left of the show, so let's keep it moving to the final headline for today, which is the ETH Foundation announcing 50,000 ETH allocation to ETH DeFi. So this is the news that the ETH Foundation has allocated 50,000 ETH worth around $165 million to support Ethereum's DeFi ecosystem. This is important because the foundation has come under pretty aggressive attack actually recently, being accused of a variety of things. One, being leftist, anti-winning, opaque and unaccountable, with a broken process for upgrading the network. I'm taking these ideas from a variety of tweets that I've seen recently. This has come from many voices, but two prominent ones are DC Investor and Eric Connor, some ETH OGs. Also been accused of being unhelpful and absent in some ways. Prominent dev Saigar tweeted, I think this morning, from Abstract, he's working at Abstract, tweeted that, that no one's ever really reached out for him to figure out how they can best help each other. So this idea that they're kind of opaque, not very transparent. How are you supposed to get some help? How are we supposed to coordinate? It's not necessarily, I think, people asking for special treatment. It's more a case of like, can we coordinate and actually help each other? I actually put a post out this morning as well saying, look, in London, who am I supposed to go to? I have for a long time considered myself like an ETH aligned person. Who do I go to get some help, bounce off ideas, like try to push the ecosystem forward? Whereas I'm getting multiple invites from people on the Super Team UK, not even official people at Super Team UK, which is like I don't know what it is, like a entity which has been tasked with or has taken it upon themselves to push the Solana ecosystem, has become a hub for the Solana ecosystem. I know there's a Super Team one in Dubai. I see you nodding along, Rahim, who I think are doing a great job as well, like acting like a hub for Solana builders and creators and supporters. It's like, where are you supposed to go? And so, I appreciate there's a challenge there with scaling, which like, okay, well, ETH is bigger. So there is that challenge, and stuff's fractured between L2s now that are kind of competing against each other. But that's where it finds itself. But I do think, coming back to this specific news, that's the context for it. Something's been set in motion in the last few days, right? Vitalik changed his profile picture to a milady. That's pretty significant. Try to engage on a cultural level with a lot of the people who are using ETH. For a long period of time, I remember Kane, the founder of Synthetics, who's now running Infinex, tweeting about how, or maybe it was in an interview, talking about how he felt that Ethereum DeFi has been ignored for a long time. It's like, they didn't want to be a part of like the financialization of everything on Ethereum, even though that was one of its biggest selling points. So for them to turn around and say like, look, we want to allocate 50K ETH to DeFi, that's clearly a step change from what was before, right? And simultaneously, it sounds like there's real moves being made. I wouldn't even say behind the scenes, quite in public out there to replace the person who's in charge with someone else. So I think I don't know why it necessarily took the president to launch a coin on Solana to do it, but I think that is kind of representing a turning point, or a breaking point and a turning point, where people have said like, okay, we need to do something because we're being accused of like being up in our ivory towers and not really using, not engaging enough. So that's the news. I think moving into DeFi will be very, very much appreciated by all of ETH. And it's not an easy task moving beyond that, right? It's still going to be very, very difficult to coordinate this humongous ecosystem. But I guess it's a step that they thought was relevant, and I would agree that it is a reasonable, good initial step. Legendary reflections here. Then we go to Rahim. Then we close out.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's a reasonable first step, and I feel like out of all the points, Saigar's point that you also have brought up was the one that stood out to me, where he was saying, look, when we launched paying on Solana, basically everyone connected us to all the top teams within the first 1-2 days, and we just knew whom to talk to and who the main actors are. It's not that there's an expectation to be funded by the ETH Foundation or to have money thrown at them, but just being welcomed, being introduced to the relevant people, having a good conversation going. And that is, like, from a cultural perspective, so significant. And if the ETH Foundation hasn't had that line of thought yet, because it took Saigar's post for someone for the ETH Foundation then to actually reply and say, oh, I'm going to send you a DM, which, is a good outcome. But if it's not something that is in your like blood and culture to think proactively about that, because you are the more reserved and bureaucratic organization that doesn't do that, then it's like a really, really hard process to change that, like sustainably. Change in companies and organizations is, there's a reason why there's like change consulting and change processes that take a shit ton of time, because if this has been the approach, to be like more neutral, to be more holding back, to not be actively involved, to rethink all of that will take time. As you said, it's a reasonable first step.
Okay. Reasonable stuff. Final take from Rahim before we close out the show. As someone who has sold all of its ETH bags for Pepe, what would it take? What would it take for you to turn some of this back into ETH? What are your thoughts in the general kind of ETH ecosystem, some of the challenges we just described?
Yeah, I think it's a leadership thing in some ways. I feel like the way there is some similarity, as you guys were talking about, it just came to me. There is some very similar similarity you can see between Bored Apes and how Bored Ape as an ecosystem was supposed to work, was designed, and how it's working now with ETH. So ETH was built with this idea of, okay, it's this like really decentralized world. We built like some of the foundational tech, and we want you to build on your own. We don't want to be involved. Do your thing. It's like an open sandbox thing. That's what the whole Bored Ape, we give you the IP, you go out there, build your businesses, build your products, and do that. I feel like in both scenarios, there have been like this insane amount of great competition that has come in the market, which has made sure, oh, you look at, forget even like Solana, like Sui has been doing a lot of like accelerator IRL stuff. They've been doing a lot of it in Dubai, where now you realize that, okay, all of these newer products, they're so involved hands deep into building the initial products, that why are we not getting this thing? So I feel like it's one of those things that, you know, when these ecosystems came out, they were one of the only few ones in the market. You didn't really have to compete against each other, and now you have better and newer products that are just essentially competing for attention. And how Super Team has kind of realized, this is something I feel like you guys have talked about on the show, of how chains end up working like cities and countries. You have like your London or New York, they're like really older cities. Everything is fragmented. The government is fragmented. Whereas when you look at places like Singapore or even Dubai, because these cities are so new, there are interconnected government bodies that you can easily get in touch with, kind of build something together. So I think it's a form of, just to like summarize, I think there needs to be some form of like leadership on the foundation side, especially. And I know there has been chatter online that I think would do a lot better than people realize.
Yeah, I have to resonate with that. I'm very pro leaders. Like, look, decentralization, cool. It's a very cool concept. I appreciate I appreciate the challenges when centralization goes bad, but when it comes to a company and an entity, and you need to like make stuff happen, I am not pro distributing responsibility to a variety of people. No one knows who's doing what. Things get lost between the cracks. I'm so pro knowing who's doing what, having a person at the top who everyone believes in at every level. So
look at just like a quick look at what Mark Zuckerberg has done with Meta. Essentially, they haven't changed their product. They're pretty much doing something very similar to what they were doing, but now people like Meta and like what they're building. And just because he went through like a big transformation, and now he's seen as like a good leader than he was before.
Well, he's done. To be fair to Meta, they've done like a bunch of new things on top of the social stuff. But I mean,
that leadership has definitely played a big role in it.
And clothing selection has played a big role more recently. He's done a whole personal rebrand. Maybe that's what's required. Maybe the Vitalik PFP change is a reflection of that. Anyway, guys, we are going over time. That was a great show. Appreciate all 1,080 of you who are watching in across platforms. A reminder, we do this on every day, actually. Just forgot for a second. We do this every single day, Monday to Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour. We're live on Twitter video. We're live on YouTube. And we're live on Twitter Spaces, where we have more than 200 in with us today. Appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining. As always, we'll be back again with you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.